day, everyone, and welcome to Obedient Family TV. The program is Hope Alive. Yes, there is hope in Nigeria. However, it is meant for people who believe that a new Nigeria is possible. On our good morning, afternoon, and evening, depending on our time zone, we have come once again to have a discussion about this very budget pardon. Earlier today, we had different, like I said, different media houses hyping much on this very particular budget pardon, 3 trillion and all of that, without dealing with the major thing that warranted even the suspension of the whistleblower, which is the Ningi. They did not deal with it. It was not, the vital issues were not addressed. But there is many things has actually came out of this very particular disturbing news from the Senate, as different platforms, reports coming out has shown that Godswill Akpabio, the president of the Senate, had not just constituency project, but has a whopping 20.5 billion marked for him on this budget. Just on 2 ministries that was reported. 2 ministries. Ministry of Agriculture, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and then the Ministry of Humanitarian, what was that? Humanitarian Services.
Right.
But we are going to bring all of those things to all of us to see, because yesterday I was very clear that something is going to come out. There is a reason why the mic of that Senator Jaribe was actually muted as at yesterday's plenary. I said it, but I also knew that something is going to come out of this. The hidden budgets, the line-by-line items, freezers, refrigerators for Senate Akpabio, totaling 20.5 billion. This is just coming on 2 ministries. We'll bring the details. We also have the details that is coming out from the news circulating everywhere, that the trial and error government that we have has also tried the error, and error has occurred, which is the opening of the land borders. Now, in as much as it's good to open these land borders, why was it even closed in the first place? Was the purpose of closing it achieved? No. It is all about Emilokan's trial and error. No be only me go talk this thing, I get the vine for studio.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us today. We're so glad to have you.
Yes, as you join us today from wherever you're joining, please do like and share so that other obedience will know that things are happening at the Nigerian Senate, coming out from the Senate president. We want to take it by the line-by-line action so that it will not be like the normal thing they said is fake news, because whenever it comes out, they will be saying, oh, this very something, oh, where did you get it from, and all of that. This is the appropriation bill details, line-by-line action. And I'm coming to you, Divine, to actually take us through this, because I understand that freezers are now costing to billions, and generators are also costing to billions on a particular location where the Senate president is coming from.
Well, this is just a very interesting development, because this 20.5 billion naira was split through 2 different, ministries. One of them is the Ministry of Women Affairs, and that's where we have an allocation of 2.5 billion naira that has been approved by the Senate to buy deep freezers for Akpabio's constituents. And so, in details, one of the projects, the name is mentioned as empowerment of women with deep freezers, generators, and other empowerment items to boost their daily earning in the 2 local governments of Northwest Senatorial District at 250 million naira each. That is Kanu and Abak. And this is costing, or this is supposedly going to cost 500 million naira. Another of them is named empowerment of women with deep freezers and generator and all other empowerment items. First of all, what is all empowerment items? There are no names for this, but we have another 500 million slated for this, and the 500 million is split into 5 places, and that is what gave us to the total of 2.5 billion. Now, if we're heading towards the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, where a whooping 18 billion naira budget was actually kept exclusively for Senator Akpabio's senatorial district, we have project names under construction of rural farm roads in Orun, Anam, and Ukanafum of Akwa Ibom State, Northwest Senatorial District at 500 million per local government area. That is bringing us to the sum total of 1 billion naira. We have another one that is slated as the fabrication and lightening of all rural farm roads with all-in-one standard solar street lights in towns in Ikono and Abak local government area of Akwa Ibom State. That is going to cost supposedly $500 million. We have another situation that this says fabrication and lightening of all rural farm roads. Just, it's a lot of repetition going on here, but from what we can see, there's 1 billion naira allocated, there's 500 million naira, another 500 million naira. The 500 million naira is split in 5 places. We have another one that says rehabilitation of selected roads and installation of new transformers and cables in different towns in Ikono and Abak. That is supposedly going to cost the government another 1 billion, and it goes on and on and on. Some of them actually exceeded 1 billion, some went into 1.5 billion, and bringing all of this to a sum total of 20.5 billion that is just slated just for our Senate President's constituency. And now I'm starting to think all of this money, right, if only his constituency gets to have all of this, then what happens to the other constituencies in senatorial districts? Because we're talking 20.5 billion. It's now starting to look like maybe this is just an attempt for them to siphon money, because I promise, I'm not even trying to be a prophet of doom, but we know that this freezers and all of that, will rarely get news of people actually getting them, and if they do, it will not be to the same tune that is stipulated on these budgets. We're having billions and billions, 1.5 billion naira, 1.5 billion naira, and it's just multiple running into over 2 digits, double digits, and it's just sad.
From 2 ministries that were reported. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security has about 18 billion.
Right.
And then we have the one that is coming from the Women Development Ministry. That one is on 2.5 billion, totaling about 20.5 billion. This is just on Senator Godswill Akpabio, the Senate President. So I want us to understand why, when we talk about the budget padding and the reason why they're trying to divert their attention and ask Senator Ningi to actually take a fall for all of this, they don't want the Nigerians to understand what has transpired. Recall that Bayo Onanuga, when this thing came out, was very, very obviously explaining to Nigerians that there is a 1.2 trillion that was padded on the budget. That is coming from Tinubu directly. Right. That it was padded. And then when we now look at this, only 2 ministries coming out, this is not part of the 1 point, because these are line by line items.
Right. Purely
different from the 1.2 trillion that was padded.
Right.
Now, we are also sure that when you check other ministries, there is no ministry that will not allocate something to Senator Akpabio. So you can imagine how much Akpabio is setting up for grabs in this 2024 budget.
Well, it's just really interesting to see, because let's even take it from the angle of Bayo and Onanuga rather. I'm not Yoruba, so permit me if I butcher his name, but my point is, he actually considered the fact that there's a 1.2 trillion naira padding. And what is, it's less about the padding for me and more about the reason he gave, because he didn't tell us, oh, this 1.2 trillion naira padding was because the National Assembly went into this budget and decided that, okay, you know what, we have to make room for this and this project, and that is how the 1.2 trillion came about. He just said they just padded the budget by 1.2 trillion, and that our president allowed for it in the spirit of democracy and allow them to exercise their power. And it's like, we're not talking 10 million.
He said in their goodwill. He gave a reason. He said in their goodwill
and wisdom.
And wisdom, that's the word, wisdom. Right. In their wisdom, padded 1.2 trillion inside.
It's really interesting to see, because how much wisdom is in the fact that you padded a budget of a country that is obviously going through hard times, and there is no means of explaining to the public for us to know, oh, okay, this 1.2, because personally, if I was supposedly a spokesperson for a government, before I write something like that, I'll try to say, you know what, even if I'm going to tell them the budget was padded by 1.2 trillion, at least whether it is true or not, I'd like to look for something that we can account to give them as an account for, oh, okay, this is the reason why there's an extra padding of 1.2 trillion. But to just come out and say, oh, in their wisdom, so in their wisdom, there's no project being allocated to this money, no. So it is less about whether it's 3.7 trillion or 1.2 trillion. This is huge amounts of money, and the person who noticed the irregularity and brought it out and talked about it, they victimized him and made him or rather they villainized him and made him the scapegoat and suspended him, and it's just very sad to see. And
we also see that some senators that were also they talked about 500 million as of yesterday. They have gone through all the media houses in Nigeria today to tell Nigerians that it has to do with constituency projects. That is now what Senator Jaribe spoke about. That it has to do with constituency. But the way he positioned it in the House, in that very Senate chamber, he said that some senators got 500 million.
Emphasis on some.
On the sum, he never mentioned any constituency project, and they muted his mic. Now it has been turned around to become constituency project. Let's even see how they address this very media abracadabra. Let's see how they addressed it. Let's take a listen.
Been a time that we had equitable distribution of resources or values to the constituencies across the country. It has never happened. So what's happening now is not novel. And that's why I stated on the floor of the Senate today, unequivocally, that while Senator Ningi raised the issue of some senators having 100 billion, 50 billion and all of that in the budget, I also have it on good authority that while I have just my constituency provision, some senators were given projects worth 500 million in their budgetary provisions of their senatorial districts. Not that senators were given 500 million naira each, as some people are saying, speculated.
It's good to clarify that.
Yes, being speculated. The mic went off when I was still speaking, and I had not made my point.
Your mic will not go off here.
So, the truth about it is that some of them had more monies, more funding in their senatorial districts, and some of us had less.
And how
so there was no need for us, who are also encumbered, to go to the press to make statements that are unfounded.
Divine, that is the mic that went off in the Senate, and that is, he said the mic went off. But obviously we knew what happened. But just like the interviewer said, his mic is not going to go up there. Now he has reversed back, just like they all do, you understand? They have gone into their private meetings and come up to resolve it that it is under constituency projects. Now the constituency projects has come about. It is not only, if it is constituency project, the one we are seeing under Akpabio is 20.5 billion. If it is that 500 million that this Senator Jaribe is talking about, if it is just 500 million that is a constituency project, then I don't think that there's a problem. But where the problem is that from what we have shown you clearly on line-by-line action, it is a total for the Senate President on 20.5 billion. if Senator Godswill Akpabio has a constituency project on 2 ministries alone of 20.5 billion, what will the Deputy Senate President have? What will be going on to the other senators from their different constituencies? Let's even have the line by line of different constituencies. Let them come out and show us the ones that has this very 500 million that he said is constituency project. They are all baloney. We know that. And it will not work. He was very clear that some senators got 500 million. And he didn't say anything about constituency. But again, Divine, looking at it from the constituency angle,
Right.
the other senators that are also there, the pardon that you discussed about, 1.2 trillion, has nothing to do with constituency.
Right.
It is not a line-by-line action. Right. It has to do with money that is infused without a line action. And that is what the Ningi, the Senator Ningi, exposed in the first place. That money that is infused in that budget is not accounted for.
You know, what I just hate about this particular Red Assembly, right? We all know that Nigeria's, legislature has been filled with a lot of bad eggs from day one. But what I just hate is the sheer display of, cowardice, to be very honest. Because this Senator Jaribe actually came out, was making salient points, and his mic was put off. Not that he went off. We know that it was deliberately put off because he was actually airing out their dirty linens and they didn't want it out. And so now, was it not better that he just actually shied away or probably don't grant those interviews? Because now we know what you meant to say. We know what you were saying. But now doing that backtracking and coming out to say, oh, it was for constituents, it was all of that. This wasn't the same demeanor he used to actually explain this, because while he was saying that in the in the assembly, it was with some kind of vendetta, basically pointing out accusatorily to tell them that, oh, some people here received 500 million, and now you're back here telling us, oh, my mic was actually off and I was misconstrued. Because now we can see they've used Senator Ningi as some scapegoat, so everybody's avoiding this suspension. So now it's basically a clear the air situation. Even if you said anything that was in any way indicting the National Assembly, now you have to go back on media houses and take it back, because who doesn't want to be, a member of the Senate, who wants to be suspended? But speaking of which, we have the Bauchi State Governor who recently drummed support for Senator Ningi. He said, despite what is going on, that he applauds his courage, and that it is actually that Senator Ningi is actually a very prominent figure in the PDP politics in the states. And I just want to applaud him, to be honest, aside to what the Bauchi State Governor is saying, that this is just something that should be encouraged. If you see something that is not adding up, that you think is not very transparent, you should be able to, that's why we elected them, that's why you're there, so you'll be able to say, okay, you know what, I think something is not going on, something is not going right, so something is fishy here.
Exactly.
And what we expected the Senate to do is to say, you know what, you've raised a very valid concern, let's look into it, and then we're going to explain to Nigerians that, oh, okay, this makes sense or this doesn't make sense. But to now, suspend him is showing an admission of guilt on their end, that, oh, okay, maybe we have something to hide. Because if someone accused me of something, I would just put the record straight, especially somebody who has the right, being a member of the Red Assembly.
Yeah, and even His Excellency P2B has actually lent his voice on this, that this suspension has not addressed the vital question that was raised by by Senator Ningi. Let's take a look at what His Excellency P2B said. He said the fuse over the alleged 3 trillion padded into the 2024 budget raised by Senator still rages, as the Senate's reaction of suspending the whistleblower has not addressed vital issues emanating from the allegation. One, he said, the senator is insisting on his allegation, and the executive agreed that there was only 1.2 trillion padded, not 3 trillion, as alleged by the Senate. Fresh allegations has also cropped up over indiscriminate and unbalanced allocation of constituency projects by Senate leadership. Now, a civic society group budgets projects by the Senate leadership. Okay, budget through their official, have also added their voice to agree with the senator. They allege that there was no detailed project allocations for about 3.7 trillion in the 2024 Appropriation Act. As the Senate suspension of the senator involved has not addressed the issue, they still owe Nigerian public a clear clarification over the various claims and counterclaims, including that of the executive arm, to be able to know exactly what is happening and also disclose to the public the exact amounts allocated for constituency projects for appropriate monitoring of implementation by the public. That is what I mentioned earlier.
Right.
I had particularly elucidated in my earlier comment on what we can use the 3 trillion to achieve by showing that it is more than the national budget of the two most critical components of the Human Development Index, health, education combined. Now that the executive arm has accepted that the padded amount is only 1.2 trillion, it is still a very significant amount when you consider that it is almost 5 times the 251.47 billion proposed for universal basic education, which is the foundation of education in the country. Today in Nigeria, the greatest challenge to human resource development is education, which has been identified as most critical at the basic level. Nigeria has about 20 million out-of-school children today because of the poor investment in education. These are resources that would have been utilized to ensure that our children are taken off the streets and returned to schools. The 1.2 trillion which the executive branch admitted to have been padded, if channeled into any of the critical areas of development, could have positively impacted the nation and uplifted the people. And if indeed the report from budget is true, that there is about 3.7 trillion without any detailed project allocation, I strongly urge the Senate to do more detailed work of channeling these funds into the critical areas of development, education, health, and pulling people out of poverty, which will in turn minimize the criminality we are facing today. We must, as a matter of urgency, put a stop to all the wastage of our scarce resources amid the excruciating hardship in the country. Let every penny of our public funds be used for public good. That is the only way to achieve the new Nigeria we are working towards. Signed, P.O. You can see P2B is still of that very opinion that having said everything and even them going to the media is not solving anything. They still owe Nigerians an explanation on that 1.2 trillion that the executive agreed existed in the first place. And then we come to talk about these constituency projects they're talking about. Let them be open about the constituency project. If God's will, Akpabio is getting 20.5 billion allocation on constituency project, I want to know what Tony Moye is getting for his Anambra North. I want to know what other Labour Party senators are getting. I want to know more. And I guess you also want to know what their constituencies are getting. Since the budget of Nigeria has only to do with all senators, House of Rep, we need to see it. We let them come open and tell us, you understand? So that we will now monitor the project. All these things that he talked about, refrigerator, 1 billion. How many refrigerators is he purchasing? How many freezers is he purchasing? 20.5 billion.
Well, it's just very sad to see, to be very honest. And I'm just holding on to the tail end of His Excellency P2B's tweet, where he said, let every penny of public funds be actually utilized for the general good of the public. Because now that we talk about it, while paying attention to the live stream, someone made mention of what lights are we going to use to run these refrigerators, and I think that's a very salient point, because let's even assume for a minute that all this money is going to go into buying refrigerators and food items and what have you for the members of his constituency. The question is, where's the electricity that they're going to use to actually power these, refrigerators? Because I think they're just playing to the gallery. They're not treating issues from the roots. If you don't treat issues from the roots, you just keep, going and going and going, just, trying to rectify the effects of the corruption that is inside. So let every penny of public money be accounted for, because I see no reason why. Now we're talking just two constituencies, or rather two ministries, so we don't know what the Ministry of Transportation or whatever is actually allocating to this our Senate president concerning his constituency. We're talking huge amounts of money, right? And it's just sad to see, because we're talking 20.5 billion, but student loan that was postponed is just 5 billion naira.
In all of these discussions, where is Ireti Kingibe? She's a senator of the Federal Republic and especially of the FCT. Where is she? Why am I asking? The constituency project has been allocated to her in that FCT. How much is it? The FCT allocation that has come in. Let's see. And also I see that Ireti Kingibe also gave an interview to the I think Channels Television or one of those mainstream media, but I didn't see her mention all of this. Is it that anybody who goes there and talks as an opposition will be penalized? Please, Ireti Kingibe, we the obedient movement came out all out. Some ran for you. Do tell us about the constituency project, and not just you, please. Every other obedient, empowered senator or a House of Rep member, we need to know about your constituency project. What are the allocations? We need to monitor them. Let's not behave like the APC. Let's try to be open. The obedience are watching. Their ears are all open. Let's even take some a soundbite from Ireti Kingibe that talked much about the obedient movement and Labour Party. Let's take a listen. We'll not go there.
Some people just join the Labour Party because they want a party that they can use to get into power, but do not necessarily reflect the ideals of this party in itself.
Of course, there will be some people that would do that, but at the end of the day, parties are vehicles everybody must get into to go to get elected. That's number one. I see, and a lot of people also saw Labour Party as an alternative, being disillusioned maybe with the other two. They think, okay, this one is new, is fresh. We can build it to become what we would like to see a party be. And that's why I'm saying, give it a little time. It will become the party that Nigerians want to see it become. And I don't think the Obedience and the Labour Party are separate. The Obedience and Labour Party are pretty much the same. It's just that maybe sometimes their ideology or their vision might digress a little bit sometimes.
In what ways?
A party has to follow a process and do things. They have to have a procedure. Sometimes I think the young people might be a bit impatient, but they do see Labour Party as an alternative. And I think that is still so.
Yeah, so you've heard from her. She's doing very well in FCT, trying to monitor what the Wike, acting as the governor of the 39 states in Nigeria, FCT, and she's actually following Wike bumper to bumper. But like I said, we need to hear from her concerning these very constituency projects, and also to educate obedience on the way forward on what is happening at the Senate. At least that much she owes it to the obedient movement.
Well, like she said, actually, a party has to follow certain, stringent, political rules and all of that. But I just have to say that most times it's less about Labour Party or less about the party or the structure by which or through which the politician comes into power. Yes, some parties are known to be inherently evil per se because of their antecedents and what they are known for. But in ideology, I think it has to do with the person that they are voting for. So whether or not you are in Labour Party, like our principal, if tomorrow our principal decides that, oh, okay, you know what, we're leaving Labour Party and we're going somewhere else, what we're buying into is not, our investment is not really in the party, but in the person, the ideology of the person that we believe in. And as long as you maintain that ideology of transparency, of accountability, right, I don't think people are actually investing in the party. It's more about the individuals that we actually think are going to be able to drive us to this promised land that we're talking about. So if you maintain these tenets of our belief or of our ideology, which is transparency, proper governance, whether or not you move to a different party does not really count in the grand scheme of things. Just maintain the standard and what you are known for and the ideology that is needed for New Nigeria.
I was toying in the direction of the senator representing FCT, Ireti Kingibe, to be more open in the discussions concerning the constituency project in that is in this budget, you understand, and also to be open and having open discussions once in a while with the obedience, who obviously helped her to make sure that she's where she is right now. So, madam, we need more openness, not too much grammar, but tell us what is happening in the Senate. Tell us. We want to know about amending the Electoral Act. We want to know about how when Mahmoud Yakubu is going to be fired. Something just needs to be not to happen. We need it to keep us updated at the happenings at the National Assembly. Let's digress a little bit from this budget padding and look at the Emilokan's trial and error, which has to do with reopening of land air borders with Niger Republic. That is one thing. But before we get into that, let's take a commentary on how all this pans out. Let's take a commentary on that.
President Bola Tinubu has directed the opening of Nigeria's land and air borders with the Republic of Niger and the lifting of other sanctions against the country with immediate effect. This directive on the restoration of territorial relations is in compliance with the decisions of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government at its extraordinary summit last month in Abuja, when ECOWAS leaders agreed to lift economic sanctions against the Republic of Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. The president has directed that the closure of land and air borders between Nigeria and Niger Republic, as well as ECOWAS' no-fly zone on all commercial flights to and from Niger Republic, be lifted immediately. According to a statement issued by the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Ajurin Gelale, President Tinubu also directed that the suspension of all commercial and financial transactions between Nigeria and Niger be lifted immediately. In the same direction, President Tinubu has also approved the lifting of financial and economic sanctions against the Republic.
A whole lot of sanctions lifted, trial and error. We all know how this started from the chairman of ECOWAS, who decided that he is going to fight a war in Niger Republic. And we are shouting everywhere. The most prominent one that raised the alarm was David Unde, who actually displayed some intel about their strike on what they want to do, the military intervention in Niger Republic. However, David Unde, finally, his expose saved the day and it didn't happen again. So, now, back to square one. They did not achieve anything. Rather, the thousands of people who would have died in the hospital in Niger Republic, of most of them may be Nigerians because of the light that was cut off from Niger Republic. And I guess the supreme leader of the military junta that is leading Niger Republic has also reported that several people have died, and they said they are going to be on the head of Bola Tinubu, who ordered the closure of that very border and suspended everything. But the long and short of this, Divine, is that the aim and the purposes of shutting the border as at that time was never achieved.
Well, to be honest, I'm just paying attention to the use of words like ordered. He ordered for a cease of financial and commercial transactions and all of that. And I just really need him to mirror the same energy when it has to do with the issues of Nigeria. Because Nigeria has a lot of banditry and insecurity going on, right? I would expect that maybe at some point he's going to, you know, stamp his feet to the ground to say, you know what, enough is enough. Let's be able to resolve these cases of banditry and insecurity. But all this energy is just, you know, I think it's geared towards proving a point to the Western world that, oh, okay, maybe he's able to, you know, give orders, to be very honest. It's just looking like a display of, you know, puppetry and maybe solidarity, because I think the Western governments just, you know, dishes out orders, and as president, or rather chairman of the ECOWAS forum, he is just in a bid to actually, you know, to actually do as he's told, right? Just show himself, basically, and then he just tells them do this and do that, or was sanctioning them without even saying the necessity, without even saying of what use this thing is. Because even all these sanctions he placed on Niger Republic, it still didn't change anything in the grand scheme of things. Matter of fact, all you did was actually kill Nigerians and make life hard for them, the ones who were living in Niger Republic, because you took off power from there for over how many months? 7 months plus. And then we have people who were actually actively relying on this power supply, probably their hospitals and all of that. And we have Nigerians there, and you didn't care enough, because the ECOWAS is Economic Community of West African States. You're meant to, you know, do things that foster peace and foster production and foster, you know, prosperity in the West African region. But you see this, his suspension and all this, his bans on them. He did not show an effort on his part to actually maintain the reason the founding fathers actually started ECOWAS. It was just a display of bravado on his part.
I think what Bola Tinubu has succeeded in doing is actually bringing a division between the West African community.
Right.
That is what he succeeded in doing. And now we have the Burkina Faso, the Niger Republic and others who had gone out of this very West African states. And they are trying to form a confederation of their own. That is another thing that is happening. And they are looking not towards the West or the US or the UK that you might be looking at, but they are actually looking at China, they are looking at Russia. Because what they are talking about now is even about the light. They want to put solar energy. They want to get, what do they call that, reactors or something that kind of gives them energy and all of that. So, as we can see, Emilokon is all about trial and error. But what we have seen is that enmity has built in. Even now that Niger Republic and the other people who has gone, about 3 other countries who has gone out of ECOWAS as a result of the policy of Tinubu, are yet to come back on board. But ECOWAS has no other thing. It has shown the weakness of ECOWAS. 1, they can't take the action. 2, they can't support the other states and all of that. However, you can go to comment section, say your part or how you feel about this whole thing. Do you think that this government led by Chief Bola Tinubu has taken any action that has been worth it since the 9 months? We just spoke earlier about the student loan that is suspended indefinitely. Should we talk about the UAE ban? Should we talk about UAE giving multiple visas to other countries but not to Nigeria? What good has come out of this government that we can say, hey, I think in this area he is doing well? Just tell me what.
Actually, propaganda, he's doing very well.
Doing well on propaganda.
Right.
Audio what do you call it? Audio
or audio plans and audio policies.
Right. They just bring it on Nigeria. So you said it's propaganda.
Yeah,
that is something they're doing very well.
Yeah.
Okay, if you think also the same, what do you think that this government is doing well? Go to comment section and tell us your thoughts on what the Chief Bola Tinubu-led government is doing well for Nigerians amid this very hunger. Well, before we leave, we'll always remind you to like, share, and subscribe, and also look at the link that we provided if you wish to join the Obedient Cooperative Society. It's a multi-purpose cooperative society that we want to start supporting people in agriculture and other value chain inside agriculture, whether it is fish farming, whether it is crop farming, every other thing that has to do with farming. We want to come together and support people who are going to produce what we are going to eat until we are able to take back this very country. We need to be together. Until tomorrow, we'll come your way again. For now, we say bye.
Peter Obi, but I did not jump any queue for Peter Obi. I did not smuggle anybody into the polling booth for Peter Obi. I did not brandish a knife or threaten anybody in my polling unit for Peter Obi. I did not snatch a ballot box, stuff a ballot box, break a ballot box for Peter Obi. I did not pay anybody to change any results for Peter Obi. I did not steal, I did not kill for Peter Obi. What I did for my candidate was stand in line from 8 in the morning on Saturday till 8 in the morning on Sunday. And when the sun got too hot and I thought of going back home, I remembered, shot to death on the train to Kaduna, and I stayed. And when the heavens opened and poured down rain, and I thought of running away to find safety, I remembered, stuck at home for months because of ASU strike, and I stayed. Through my hunger, through my thirst, through my worry whether the children I left at home were fine, I stayed. Because what I wanted to give my candidate, what I ended up putting in that ballot box was not a piece of paper. What I ended up putting in that ballot box was my hope for a country where young people would not be so disillusioned by the actions of their own parents, of their own leaders, that they will be willing to risk crossing the Sahara Desert on foot just to escape. That was what I put in that ballot box. That was what my presiding officer refused to upload for 3 days. The future of that young boy who stood with me, who stood with us as we counted those votes through the night. He was a first-time voter, pregnant with hope. But somewhere between the polling unit and the collation center, that boy's future was waylaid by a politician that used biro to cross out his destiny, a politician that found where that boy had written hope and wrote over it hopeless. It is a terrible thing when a Nigerian is kidnapped on the way to Zamfara or Makodi or Enugu, but it is infinitely worse when Nigeria herself is kidnapped on the way to the collation center. I tell you, my brother, my sister, it is not Nigeria that has her foot on your neck. It is not the Fulani or the Igbo, the Christian or the Muslim that has their finger wrapped around your neck and are now squeezing the civic life out of you. It is not those Yoruba people that don't give a damn whether you eat, whether you have a decent house to sleep in, whether you're able to find a job 5 years after graduating. It is not North or South that uses 8 years to build one bridge or to repair one pothole in the middle of your road. It is that politician who is willing to kill, who is willing to steal to stay in power. That is your enemy.